until when we have to say enough. Enough is enough. This cannot go on for more. This cannot go on for longer. Hello, beautiful people. I hope you're safe. I hope you're practicing social distancing and staying away from crowded places unless absolutely necessary. Today's topic isn't a fun topic to talk about. It's not funny. It's not light. It might be one of the heaviest topics we might have to talk about in this channel, and that is sexual harassment and sexual violence. A disclaimer before I begin, I'm not talking about one specific country. This is a global issue, so I won't be specifying my talk to one country per se. I won't mention any names of any countries. I'm just going to talk about the matter itself, the problem itself, which is the sexual harassment. Now, I'm just going to read you a couple of statistics before we begin. The United Nations, first of all, defines sexual harassment as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other verbal or physical conducts of sexual nature. It is estimated that 2 billion females around the world have been victims of sexual harassment as of 2015. So that was 5 years ago. You can imagine how high the number have risen since then. And it is also estimated that around 900 million males were victims of sexual harassment. A 2004 WHO review of research estimated the global prevalence of childhood sexual victimization to be around 27% among girls and around 14% among boys. Two billion women around the world. The total population of females around the world is 3.9 billion. This means that more females than not have experienced one form or the other of sexual harassment. You're talking about more than half of the female population on earth being sexually harassed. We cannot read this statistic and just go on thinking that, yeah, this is fine, this is not a problem. If anyone asks me why am I talking about this topic, I guess the statistics that I just mentioned are a clear enough reason that we need to be talking about this plight that is infesting in humanity. An action that takes human out of humanity, an action that is devoid of any empathy or humane nature that should be there in every human being. The problem and the cause, the many causes actually of this issue have been a matter of argument for as long as we have lived on this earth. Many people have many different opinions. So a disclaimer, I will be mentioning my own opinion along with the opinions of many people around me who have gathered their answers. It begins with brushing off the comments as something that is, normal. Giving reasons and excuses to any comment that is thrown at any person who's walking by, was it a girl or a guy or a kid. Another reason was the upbringing and environment of the harasser growing up. For example, seeing women figures constantly abused while growing up. Let me just clarify that it is not the mistake of the parents always, because some parents work hard to raise their kids. They do nothing wrong. They do everything the way they're supposed to, but their kids just end up growing up to be harassers, and that is not because of the parents, as I said. It is probably a problem that is caused by the environment outside the house, the people they hung out with growing up, because growing up, kids are very malleable. They have a malleable brain. They're very easily impressionable to an extent that any incident that happens can have a long, life-lasting effect on them. As I said, the lack of empathy, morality, and humanity is the main issue. If you see a person who is hurting, you feel their pain. That is empathy. You cannot be empathetic if you are the one causing that pain. You are void of any empathy in you, and that is a main issue. One very important factor, honestly, is that there are not enough rules to stop or punish the harassers, and that is true for a lot of countries around the world. The rules usually don't play hugely in the favor of the victim. If there is a possibility that it does, then it would require the victim to state their name in public and to make their records public and their image public and so on. And that can be very traumatizing to the victim, which is another point that I want to talk about. We cannot ask the victim against their will and against their wishes to make their name public, the story that they went through public with their own names and the names of the perpetrators, because that will just make it more difficult, more traumatic for the victims. They mostly want to forget that it happened. They don't want to relive it in front of millions and millions of people over and over again. They don't want to see their name being dragged again and again by the media, by the courts, by the lawyers, and so on. They wish to stay anonymous, but at the same time, they wish that the perpetrator, the person who did this to them, faces the consequences that they deserve. And that is what we should be supporting. That is what we should be helping. Because at the end of the day, they've been through enough. We should not be the ones who are putting them through more. Now, as the statistics that I mentioned show, the majority of victims are females. And many people, when I asked them why do you think that is the case, they said the thinking that is spread around many cultures around the world, which is men will be men, they will make mistakes, life will move on. But if the female is the one who made the mistake or is the victim, either or, they will be punished and they will be looked upon and they will be asked to avoid getting into these situations again. I mean, it's not like she woke up in the morning thinking, well, today is a good day to be sexually harassed, so let me go do that. But it's none of my business, I guess. Another problem is the fear of scandal leading to oppression and secrecy. As I mentioned before, it's a point that I partially talked about. The fear of scandal, the name being dragged, especially if the harassment went on to become sexual violence, to become a case of rape, then the parents or the family of the victim would not want the name of their daughter or son to be published as a rape victim, because to them that would hurt the image of the person, of the family, and that is something that they want to avoid. So that leads to the oppression of the story and the secrecy around it. Usually the story or the event or the incident ends up not being reported to the police, or if so, then dismissed because there are not enough information being provided by the family. And honestly, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, so you would rather have your name or the name of your family being kept clean, which I don't know, kept clean from what, because it's not her fault or it's not his fault. So you want the name of the family to be clean rather than see the person who hurt your son or daughter being prosecuted, and just doesn't make any sense. Another point that I honestly personally agree with is distancing oneself from spirituality. No matter what religion you follow, there is not one religion on the face of this earth that says sexual harassment is okay, sexual violence is fine. Not one religion. So when we distance ourselves from our own religion, our own belief, our own faith, we tend to make mistakes. And this, I believe, is one of the very good reasons why this is spreading more and more. Okay, Now we move on to the solutions. I asked the question of how can we limit, if not eliminate, the issue, and many people said that it is very difficult, if not impossible, to totally eliminate the issue, which I agree with. We don't want to kid ourselves. We're not living in La La Land. It is not a perfect world. We cannot eliminate, but we can do our best to limit and try to reduce the number of incidents that happen. The most obvious solution is speaking about the issue, speaking about the incidents that happen, and standing up for yourself or for others who went through it. The more you speak about it, the more awareness is being spread around the community, the more eyes are being put on this matter, the more working hands are being devoted to this subject, so the more results we will see. Another obvious solution is the strict and decisive legal actions against the perpetrators. Some people do not have a conscience of their own to stop them from committing hideous things, so the law comes in to scare them from doing them. Sadly though, we do not have a lot of strict and decisive legal actions, as I said, against sexual harassment and sexual violence. Sexual violence, yes, sexual harassment, not so much. And we want to change that, because we should not wait for the sexual harassment to turn into sexual violence so we can prosecute and punish the harasser or the perpetrator. We want to do that while it's still in the harassment part, so it stops there, it doesn't advance. Another important point is that we have to stop blaming the victims. Even if you believe they did something wrong, even if you believe that they had something to do with them being harassed, don't say it like that. Don't say it flat out ahead. Hear what they have to say. Help them. Comfort them. Lead them in the proper path of getting justice, and then advise them, and then talk to them. Do not blame them. At the end of the day, no matter what they did, there is not one situation that you can convince me that they asked to be harassed. And to the people who say that the victim was asking for it, or the victim was the reason it happened to them, or the victim played a role in it happening to them, I don't see the 5-year-old kid or younger who's playing at home peacefully in his room or in her room and are sexually harassed or assaulted by a family member asking for it. I don't see the kid who's at summer camp and is sexually assaulted by one of the counselors asking for it. I don't see a handicapped female who was sexually harassed by an older guy in a public park, true story, asking for it. I don't see a college student who's trying to get good grades and is assaulted or harassed by her professor who made sexual advances on her as asking for it. You cannot ask for something bad to happen to you. If you're asking for it, that defies the term harassment. Harassment means it is coerced. It is something that you did not want to happen to you, and yet it happened. If you are asking for it, it does not fall under harassment, so it is not the topic of our discussion today, and that point is void. They might have done other stuff, or they might have went down a different path to maybe eliminate the possibility, yes. But do we blame them? No. Again, another point that I already mentioned, which is sex education, but proper education when young, not only in schools, but also at home. There's one song that is going around the internet and is being thrown around as something that is funny because it is being associated with video games and so on, that I believe holds a deeper meaning, and they know that it holds a deeper meaning. And I'm glad that it is being spread around the internet, because it needs to be taught to every kid around the world growing up. It is very simple. No, no, don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Very simple words. It teaches them that unless they want a person to touch them anywhere, then they shouldn't. And that is harassment. Teach it. It is very simple. No, no, don't touch me there. This is my no-no square. Add rhythm to it, add rhyme, add whatever you want, add music. Teach it to the young ones growing up, please. Open communication between children and their parents. If a child is scared of telling their parents that they were harassed by anyone, that is a huge problem. That is an issue that needs to be looked at, because at the end of the day, if the child doesn't feel safe going to their parents, then who will they feel safe going to and telling them about the issue that happened, about the incident? Another point is that parents have to keep careful watch over their kids, who they mingle with, who they associate with, especially in their free time, because as I said before, childhood friendships shape the future of the kid, through the way of thinking, through the way of acting, and so on. So if you see your kids hanging around some shady characters, try to stop that. If you see your kids getting into a lot of troubles, a lot of fights, try to stop that. If you see your kid hanging around with kids who are way older than him, please try and stop that. One last point that I want to talk about is what I like to call friend snitching. If you have a friend who you suspect or you have seen sexually harass anyone, either by words, physically, or even by looks only, please stop them. Please educate them. Please talk to them. If none of this works, please report them to the authorities that are concerned with this matter. At the end of the day, they are your friends. If you love them truly for the people who they are, it is your duty, before it is anyone else's, to stop them. And that is done either by talking to them, educating them, forcing them to stop, or if worse comes to worse, reporting them to the authority. Also, if you feel that any of your friends was a victim of sexual harassment, if you've seen it, if you suspect it, if you believe it, talk to them, comfort them, make them feel like they're safe. Let them know that this is a safe space for them to talk to you. And once they do, help them take the right steps in getting justice for what happened to them. Don't brush it off. Don't make it seem like it was their fault. Don't take it upon yourself to go and deal with the perpetrator. None of these options are good options. Report it to the authorities, comfort your friends, and help them as much as you can. But today's video was a hard one to make, honestly. It's still my second video on this channel, but I believe it will be one of the hardest that I ever have to make. The sheer amount of horror and the statistics and the stories that I've read, and the news about the victims, the kids, the young ones, the old ones, the guys, the girls, the horror, it is something that is the work of nightmares, honestly. It is not what you expect to see from a race that is called humans. And yet, it is what it is. This is the world that we're living in right now. Please stay safe. Please watch out for the people that you let in, for the people who you let become close to you. Please keep careful watch over your kids, over your friends, over yourself, over your partners, over your colleagues. Please act accordingly and appropriately if you ever see harassment in front of your eyes. Please, if you are a harasser who hasn't been caught yet, please stop. Repent for what you've done. It shouldn't go on, and you can stop it. Please stop it. If you've ever been the victim of sexual harassment or sexual violence, I cannot claim to know what you've been through, but I can only tell you that there are a lot of people who care about you, a lot of people who would do anything to make you feel safe again, to make you feel loved again. A lot of people who are working for this amazing cause, honestly. So don't feel alone. Don't feel like you have to live the rest of your life in fear. We're all here for you. And yeah, I don't think there will be an outro for this video because it just doesn't feel right. I guess I'll just end it by saying I love you all. Thank you.